If you want proof that the Star Wars franchise is basically dead, here it is. This article is from Forbes and it's linked below. The Mandalorian and Grogu not on summer's top 10 most anticipated movies list. The author talks about a new Fandango survey, and the article says the big ticket seller surveyed its audience to find the most anticipated movies of the summer. The Mandalorian and Grogu isn't on the list at all, and there are some surprising entries that did land there coming in above it. Here's the list. Toy Story 5, Spider-Man Brand New Day, The Devil Wears Prada 2, The Odyssey, Scary Movie, Moana, Minions and Monsters, Mortal Kombat 2, Supergirl, Insidious, Out of the Further. As you can see, The Mandalorian and Grogu isn't in there. It's not on the list. A Star Wars movie failing to crack a top 10 list from an audience survey of the most anticipated films of the summer. Now, as I've said before, I don't think it was a good idea to greenlight a film based on the Mandalorian TV series. Yeah, the first season of the show was pretty good, but I just don't think the show was worthy of being adapted to the big screen. But it's very telling where Star Wars is right now if a new Star Wars movie is coming out this summer and the hype isn't off the charts. It's a sign that the franchise has lost its value, it's lost its status in pop culture. I think the Star Wars franchise is simply done. I cannot see it returning to its former glory. I mean, what would bring it back? I've already discussed how The Mandalorian and Grogu is expected to have a lower domestic opening weekend at the box office than Solo: A Star Wars Story. And that film was a box office failure. There's an article about this and it's linked below from That Park Place. You can read more about it there. I don't think anything could return this franchise to what it once was. The original trilogy weren't just some sci-fi franchise movies, they were iconic cinema. Nothing produced since then in the franchise has or ever will compare, and I include the prequel films in that also. The original 3 movies were made in a golden age of film, and Star Wars has tried and failed to recapture the magic of those movies over the years with sequels and prequels that attempt to tie into the lore of those movies in some way, but just feel like poor pretenders to the throne. And the treatment of the main 3 original cast members, Han, Luke and Leia, in the recent sequel trilogy movies, I'm talking about Force Awakens, The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker, it was just appalling. And only further disenfranchised many fans. Han and Leia divorced and estranged. Luke, a broken man living alone and disillusioned on an island in the middle of nowhere. And then all 3 of them get killed off in those movies. With the sequel trilogy, it felt like the writers were taking Kylo Ren a little too literally. Let the past die, kill it if you have to. Now, I wanted to take a look at this article from Cosmic Book News. Disney hoped new Star Wars trilogy would erase the original, says former employee. Another Disney employee has come forward about issues at the company and with Star Wars, following a laid-off software engineer who touched on Disney's internal culture, DEI, and more. Now, former Disney employee and conservative writer Peachy Keenan is blasting Disney's Star Wars strategy and says the company built the Disneyland Galaxy's Edge attraction around the wrong version of Star Wars from the start. And I agree with this. I think this speaks to what Disney wanted to achieve with its vision for the franchise when it bought Lucasfilm. They wanted to make their own version of Star Wars. To me, the sequel trilogy felt more like a reboot rather than a canonical continuation, and their Disneyland attractions kind of reflect this in some ways. It says Keenan, who says she was at Disney when the land launched and wrote marketing text tied to the rides, hotel, marketing and website, described deep internal frustration over the direction of the project. When I say there was crushing disappointment, almost a feeling of betrayal that the whole thing was on the new IP and not the original IP. I am not exaggerating, she posted on X. Keenan says Disney made a deliberate choice to build Star Wars Land around the sequel era instead of the original trilogy icons. fans actually wanted, with the hopes fans would forget the originals. It's just never going to happen. It's never going to happen. The original films were too culturally significant and groundbreaking to be surpassed. By all means, introduce new characters and new stories, move Star Wars forward in time, but they needed to treat the original characters with much greater reverence and respect than they did in the sequel trilogy. The inclusion of Han, Luke, and Leia in those 3 movies, it just felt like a box-ticking exercise to appease fans, and they didn't even share screen time all at once together. It was just such a massive missed opportunity. She says, Disney made the decision to invest this money in order to support the new trilogy, which they thought would erase the old one in the minds of fans, she said. The level of hubris around this one for the business industry history books. Later in the article it says, Keenan also reacts to Disney now changing course with Galaxy's Edge and bringing back more familiar original trilogy elements. And the article includes an ex-post here from Disney Parks. And it says, the force be with you always. Join your favorite rebels to pledge allegiance to the Empire starting April 29th, 2026 at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. And as you can see there, they're bringing in Han, Luke, and Leia, and Darth Vader. And look, yeah, it's great that they're doing that. Having Han, Luke, and Leia there is wonderful, the original trilogy characters, but it does feel too little too late. I mean, in the sense that, you know, why weren't they there from the beginning? They should have been in the theme park from the beginning. So anyway, to wrap this video up and to come full circle, to go back to the Mandalorian and Grogu, you know, why is there not much excitement or anticipation for that movie? It's a Star Wars movie. It should be a big deal. But the reason there isn't much interest is really because it's reflective of the decline of the franchise that has resulted from the creative missteps that Disney has made in recent years. Disney have made several lackluster Star Wars TV shows and movies over the past few years. Star Wars no longer feels like a prestigious science fiction brand. What would it take to reinvigorate this franchise? I don't think there's anything that can be done. And to me, Star Wars is really just the original trilogy. To me, that's the only thing that's canon. Maybe I'm a little bit of a Puritan there. I know people who also like the prequels, for example, and of course Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, was pretty decent. Andor was pretty decent. Now, I'm not a fan of the prequels, I will say that, I don't like them. Star Wars to me will only ever be A New Hope, Empire, and Return of the Jedi. They'll never be outdone. To me, when it comes to this franchise, that's it. It's just the original trilogy. And in terms of the future of the franchise, I don't think there really is one. I think Star Wars is done. I think the Force is finished. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.